Well, lately I found myself completely fascinated with the history of department stores, especially Le Bon Marché, meaning the French market, the famous department store in Paris, often considered the world's first modern department store. As I learned more about this beautiful store, this amazing piece of retail history that I have yet to go and visit, but I will. I will see it one day. What I actually found so fascinating was that more than 150 years ago, this department store, it wasn't just changing the way people shopped. It was actually changing the lives of the people who worked there. It's pretty cool. So today I wanted to explore what it was really like to work at Le Bon Marché, how one department store, it transformed the lives of its employees, of many men and women, and why their story matters today. Welcome to another episode of Sorry, It's Discontinued. I'm Hilary, and I'm so glad you're here with me. And after more than 25 years in retail, I created this podcast to celebrate the retail community and the stores and brands that we all love. So grab your coffee, have a seat, and let's travel back in time. Come on, let's go. A little 19th century Paris, and discover what it was really like to work at the world's first modern department store. Sorry. It's discontinued. Now, to understand why Le Bon Marché was so revolutionary, obviously, you could tell that I don't speak French. I sound silly, but we're going to get through it. We're just going to get through it. Le Bon Marché. But we have to understand that this store, it changed what shopping looked like. Because the truth is, a store like Le Bon Marché would have seemed almost impossible to people living in Paris in the early 19th century. Most shopping actually took place in small specialty shops. You might visit one shop for a hat, another one for gloves, another for some fabrics, gonna make a dress, make a suit, maybe another one for watches if you're, getting a little extra money in your pocket. But unless you were shopping at a general store, most merchants, they specialized in only a small range of products. And in Paris at this time, around the mid 1800s, regulations, it often limited direct competition between nearby merchants because it made sure that shopkeepers, they weren't all selling the exact same goods just side by side. So shopping, prices could be negotiated, selection was very limited, and customers, they had to travel from shop to find everything you needed. But then came Le Bon Marché. And suddenly the rules began to change. Instead of offering just one category of goods, customers could find an enormous variety of products all under one roof. Clothing, linens, your household items, accessories, fabrics, luxury goods, items that previously it required visiting all these merchants and looking at different shops. But you could now find them in one single destination, in one store. But it wasn't just the merchandise that made the store different. It was the experience. All the way back in the 1800s, the experience. Le Bon Marché helped introduce fixed prices which meant customers no longer had to negotiate or wonder if they were being charged more than someone else. And customers were encouraged to browse without feeling pressured to buy. Fun fact, before Le Bon Marché, many customers weren't even expected to touch merchandise when they went into these boutiques or shops. And being able to browse freely, compare items, completely new experience. It was a whole new world. They could touch merchandise and compare different pieces and products and hats and fabrics, spending time exploring the store. And today, that sounds totally normal. We're used to that. We do it at the grocery store. You do it at wherever you go. In the 1850s, 1860s, this was revolutionary. The store, it also embraced advertising in ways that few businesses had ever done before. This is when catalogs were really distributed. Promotions were created. It's a sale. Seasonal sales were introduced, and window displays became attractions in their own right. Fun fact, some Parisians would visit Le Bon Marché simply to see the displays and decorations, even if they had no intention of buying anything. Hey, been there, done it. I love a window look, a window shop. No, I'm not going to buy anything. I just want to walk around and look at the windows. The best. The store, it became a destination long before shopping malls existed. And for many people, visiting Le Bon Marché wasn't simply shopping. This was entertainment. It was a whole experience. Perhaps most importantly, though, it became a place where women could move through public spaces more freely than they could in other environments at the time. Women became some of the store's most important customers. And the department store offered a level of independence and participation in public life that was still relatively new. Fun fact, historians often credit department stores like Le Bon Marché with helping create one of the first socially acceptable public spaces where middle-class women could spend time independently. As the store grew, so did its influence. The original location eventually became too small. It was expanding so quickly. And when Aristide Boucicaut expanded and reimagined the business, Le Bon Marché evolved into something far greater than a store. It actually became a huge symbol of a very changing and evolving society, a growing middle class, a more modern city, and a new way of thinking about consumption or leisure and different opportunities that were coming. And as I was reading this and finding out more about this store, really putting myself in the shoes of the men and women who were standing behind the counters, that's what intrigued me. What was it like to work there at that time? Because this store was transforming how people worked, transform their lives. It was a social experiment, one that would impact workers and families and the entire community around it in Paris for generations to come. Huge. Can you imagine working in this store at that time? Oh. Go back in time. To understand why Le Bon Marché was so revolutionary, we have to understand what life was like for these workers in the mid 1800s and an expanding new city of Paris. This was way long before employee handbooks, human resources department, health insurance, retirement plans, paid vacation, blah, 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 labor protections. For many workers, for many people at that time, life was just so uncertain. It was stressful. Your job could disappear overnight. Somebody could get sick and leave the family with no income. And many people had to work long hours for low wages and lived in very, very crowded conditions, especially in a city like that. There were very few safety nets. And if you were a young person arriving in a large city like Paris, looking for work, or you lived in a city like Paris, your future depended almost entirely on finding an employer or a shopkeeper or someone willing to take a chance on you. So when Le Bon Marché comes around, this was a big deal. As the store expanded under Aristide and Marguerite Boucicaut, the store, it became known for transforming employment. The employees and the people who worked there actually received benefits that were unheard of at that time. The company provided housing for many workers. So fun fact, by the late 1800s, thousands of employees worked for Le Bon Marché, making it one of the largest private employers in Paris. They had meals, there were educational opportunities, they had medical assistance, they had savings programs, retirement support, recreational activities. That's crazy. Benefits that might sound kind of similar to what we have today. But in the 1800s, this was extraordinary. This was huge. This didn't happen. So for many young workers, especially those that are coming into the city from rural villages or communities, or middle of nowhere in these small towns, employment at this beautiful store, it represented something much more than just a paycheck. It was a future. Imagine even being a young woman arriving in Paris from the countryside. You may have never traveled that far from home. This is the first time. You likely had very limited education. You knew very few people. Then suddenly, one of the most famous stores in France, it offers you a job, a place to live, all of these wonderful benefits, and a chance to build a life. It wasn't just a workplace. This store became a community, its own community, which it's true when you work in stores and you're surrounded by people that you're with all the time. They're your work family. And in many ways at that time, that's what Aristide wanted. That was his intention. He believed that if employees, if they felt invested in the success of the company, they felt a part of something, they would be more loyal, more productive, and definitely more committed to serving their customers. So the store, it became almost like a small city operating under one. But when you look at it, of course, there's positives, and it looks like the positives at that time definitely outweighed the negatives. But it really can complicate things. I mean, it changes things because those benefits, they were all attached with expectations, rules, and most definitely control. This store, it often operated under what a lot of historians describe as a paternalistic model, which basically Boucicaut, he saw himself as a father figure to his employees. He wanted to provide for them, is what they believe, protect them, guide them, but he expected obedience, discipline, loyalty. And because a lot of these employees, they lived in the company housing, their lives and schedules were extremely structured and monitored all the time. So employees, they actually were even evaluated on their conduct and reputation outside of work, not just when they were working, because the company wasn't just interested in their performance, they were watching character. So even though the store was providing many amazing benefits, it definitely came with strings attached. But I guess if you're looking at the possibilities and the options that you had at the time, this is a dream gig. Sign me up. And it helped shape the lives of all of these employees. But nowadays, it would be quite uncomfortable. I mean, we don't like to be micromanaged. We don't. No. I get annoyed when I hear, why is everybody huddling today? So can you imagine if they were controlling all of our everythings? Sounds horrible. But then again, 1800s. Today we value our independence and personal freedom. But in the 19th century, workers looking at this arrangement, it was a gift. They looked at it so differently. When you have limited resources and few opportunities, this was a life-changing opportunity. And you welcome the thought if you have food, a bed, and a paycheck. Oh my gosh. And this was especially life-changing for women at the time. Many of the associates at Le Bon Marché were young, unmarried women, which who cares if they're married or not? But at this time, this was a big deal. The store would provide them with opportunities, but women at that time were expected to leave employment, leave their jobs once they get married. So marriage often marked the end of a woman's career. The idea was that a wife would focus on the home and her family rather than continue to work outside the home. So while this store offered opportunities to women, they came with limits. And I wonder how many of those women were allowed to work if they did decide to get married. So across the ocean, America's department store boom was pretty big. And while Le Bon Marché was transforming retail in Paris, a lot was happening across the way. America was experiencing its own retail revolution. Of course, cities were growing, railroads were expanding, the middle class was increasing, and merchants were beginning to realize that shopping could be something much bigger than just a simple transaction, especially reading about what was happening in Paris. So throughout the mid to late 19th century, a new generation of retailers began building stores that were huge, larger, more elegant, more ambitious, and designed to attract customers, not just to buy, but the key word, to experience. In New York, A.T. Stewart opened his famous Marble Palace in 1846, creating one of America's first true multi-department retail stores. Soon after came stores like Arnold Constable, Lord & Taylor, Macy's, Bloomingdale's. In Philadelphia, John Wanamaker built a retail empire inspired in part by the great stores of Europe. In Chicago, Marshall Field's, and these stores borrowed many of their ideas from Le Bon Marché. And of course, we have to talk about Neiman Marcus in Dallas. All of these stores, fixed prices, large product selections, beautiful displays, advertising, customer service, and creating an completely new environment where shopping became the experience. But when it came to employee welfare, Le Bon Marché remained unique. Most American department stores, they definitely employed thousands of workers, but few American retailers created the same type of employee benefits that they were offering at Le Bon Marché. And many ways, really, the American department stores, which I think still is true to this day, focused more on the customer experience and not on the employees' needs. But Le Bon Marché focused on both customer experience and the employee experience. Of course, neither model was perfect. American retail workers worked long hours and women still face limited advancement opportunities. But what makes this department store in Paris, what makes it stand out, is that they did view their employees as part of the institution, not just workers and labor, but they were members of the community. Now, Aristide and Marguerite, they were exploring different employment ideas more than 150 years ago. And really, even though it seems so limiting to us now, this was an amazing opportunity for the people of Paris. All these men and women in the different communities around there, these people who worked there at the time, it really did change their lives. What's remarkable is that while many of the great department stores of the 19th century, they've disappeared, Le Bon Marché is still there. More than 170 years later, customers are still walking through its incredible doors. Associates are still greeting these customers, and people still build careers there. Of course, working in retail today, it's very different than it was in the 19th century. Today, associates, we are navigating online shopping and customer expectations are, sales goals, staffing. I mean, what? I'm all alone today? Blah, blah, blah. All of it is definitely reshaping this industry. But despite all of those changes, one thing remains the same. And I know it's the same there at this beautiful store, Le Bon Marché. Retail is powered by the people. Relationships we build with customers, friendships with our friends and coworkers, and that human connection. And more than 170 years later, people are still at the heart of its story, Le Bon Marché. The fact that it remains, it's a reminder that stores are more than just buildings. Retail has always been and will always be about the people. So I thank you so much for sitting with me today for another episode of Sorry It's Discontinued. I appreciate you. And I hope today you go do something wonderful for yourself because you deserve it. Go shopping. Just go walk around. Maybe your local stores. Support those wonderful associates. Maybe go pick up a new cream shadow from Hourglass. They have some fun cream shadows. There's one that I used to use from Tom Ford called Sphinx. Of course, I couldn't remember it when I was trying to say it. Sphinx, this gorgeous, sparkly gold pink cream shadow. Well, Hourglass is something similar. Also, Anastasia came out with these really cool cream shadow sticks. So if you want a cream shadow and you're having a hard time finding it and you want something easy, yeah, go play with the Anastasia colors. They're gorgeous. Anyway, so I hope you go have fun, go shop in the local stores, support those wonderful associates in the retail community, and smile whether you are behind the counter or in front of it. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Sorry, It's Discontinued, the podcast that brings you the reality of retail and the people, brands, stores, and products we all love. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit follow, leave a review, or share it with a fellow retail warrior. You can always connect with me or support the show at sorryitsdiscontinued.com or buymeacoffee.com/sorrypodcast. Now, this podcast is independently produced and not sponsored by any brand, company, or organization. All views, opinions, and personal stories shared are their own and do not represent any retailer or brand mentioned. Brand names, product references, and service mentions are included for storytelling and commentary purposes only. But I thank you so much for sitting with me today. And remember, continue to shop in store, support your local stores and your local sales associates. You can even call them and order. It's amazing. And every visit helps keep these stores open so we can all continue enjoying real in-person retail therapy. And I'll see you next time. I appreciate you so much. Bye. Sorry. It's discontinued.